Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the webinar of North London Social Work Teaching Partnership. My name is Peter Butzi, and it's a pleasure to be with you. And if you agree, let's just wait for a couple of minutes for other colleagues to join us, and then we can get started. Can I ask you, before we get started, a few questions about your own experience and how you look at social media, what you think about it? And if you can be so kind, this would be polls. These questions will be posted to you. If you can be so kind to choose one of the answers. The first question is, in your view, do children and young people spend significant amount of time online? Would you agree with that statement? Wonderful. So I think basically most of us, all of us actually seem to believe that they do spend significant amount of time online. In your view, do children and young people spend too much time on social media and digital technologies? Do you think the amount of time they spend online, it's a little bit too much, it's excessive? What do you think? I can see about 95% of us agree that they spend too much time, and some colleagues would believe sometimes they spend too much time. Very interesting answers, very, very good. Could I ask you another question? Would you do an assessment of children and young people without considering their home or their school environment? Would that be holistic assessment? I think the answer to that very solidly is no, and thank you. Obviously, we can't do an assessment without considering children and young people's experiences at home and in school. Although they're with their parents, we still need to know about it, know about their experiences. And even when they're in school, they're with teachers, we still need to know those experiences. Otherwise, the assessment would not be holistic. In fact, we make comparisons between home environment, their behavior at home, and their behavior in the school, and we draw insight and understanding of children's behavior. We try to look at the differences between the way they behave in school, the way they behave at home, and we try to learn from that, and that is actually helpful for us in understanding why they do that, how they do it, what is the situation. The next question is, do you agree with the statement that children and young people's online lives have a great influence on their identity, on their relationship, on their behavior, and on their well-being, basically? Would you agree with that statement? That children are basically very influenced by their online experiences, by what happens online. In fact, they try very hard to maintain that, and it's a significant part of their lived experience. Great. I think it seems all colleagues agree with that, and I would fully agree with you that yes, actually it is really, really significant. In fact, research indicates that in some ways, and I think our own experience and what you may have observed, is that in some ways they're more influenced by their online interactions than by their face-to-face interactions and experiences. Can I ask you still one more question? And that is, do you routinely include an analysis of children and young people's online experiences in all your assessments and safeguarding plans? Meaning, all your assessment safeguarding plans consider routinely that children's experiences online, their online identities, what they do, who they engage with, and so on and so forth. Do you routinely include that in your assessments? We have majority of colleagues saying no, about almost 3/4 of colleagues, 75%, approximately 3/4 of colleagues saying no, about 1/4 of colleagues saying yes, and a smaller percentage, about 3%, saying that don't want to answer that question. I can understand that. The colleagues who say yes, if we reflect for a moment, ask maybe yourself, do you always include in every assessment literally that you do? We have done a national research which I will share with you later. Some people answered yes to this question. And when we were in focus group when we discussed what we meant by including an analysis of online experiences in assessment, they sort of recognized that actually they don't do that, and basically they do it only when the online activities are a concern, a source of concern. For example, when it is in the referral, when, for example, the child is being bullied, when there is sexting involved, when there is grooming involved, when there's sexual abuse or other stuff that are related to online is involved, then colleagues tend to consider online. But even when we do that, we usually, most of the time, the colleagues would not have, most of the colleagues we have spoken with, they don't feel they have an evidence-based approach for dealing with these sort of issues. And they find it a rather constant challenge in practice because, as all of us know, children and young people on the one hand want to have a lot of visibility. On the other hand, children and young people feel that what they do online is really private. How many colleagues, I think a lot of us have seen a situation like what you see, the picture that you see on the lower left corner of this screen. People sitting together, they're communicating with each other, and they do not necessarily converse verbally. And what happens instead is they text each other. I think colleagues have seen that. In your view, young people, you do that quite often. They, even in the face-to-face interactions, they do a lot of texting instead of talking. Do you think that is a good thing or it's a bad thing? This is another poll question. In face-to-face interactions with each other, young people often communicate with each other through texting rather than verbal communication and verbal conversation. Is this a good thing or a bad thing in your view? What do you think? Would colleagues who are saying it's a good, bad thing, or especially those who are saying it's neither good or bad, would you like to share a comment in the chat box about why it's not good or bad? Any insights about why it's neither good nor bad? I think about 55, 56 to 50, 55, 60% of us believe that it's a bad thing. About 35 to 40% of us believe that it is neither good nor bad. Colleagues who say it's neither good nor bad, would you like to share part of your insight in the chat box as to why you think it is neither good nor bad? Deteriorates natural human behavior because I have noticed a decline in children's being able to express themselves verbally. They are so used to using emojis. That's actually an important observation, but I would probably veer more towards bad. Low self-esteem. We have to accept that the way we communicate is evolving. Very important point, Evelyn. Simran says that if a young people is very anxious or socially uncomfortable, it's better at least for them to communicate via texting than not communicate at all. That's a very insightful response, Simran. Actually, that's so true. Our research indicates that actually young people, for example, autistic young people, they do prefer textual communication rather than verbal face-to-face communication. For the colleagues who have worked with with autistic people, you know that the challenge they face is they feel overwhelmed very readily, very easily. Because in face-to-face interactions, verbal interactions, there's a lot of emotional load and there's a lot of various non-verbal cues, and this is rather overwhelming for them. While textual communication doesn't have that, so they find it more comforting and easier to express themselves. That's so good. Well done, Simran. Not all assessments, absolutely very good. Lots of good responses and very thoughtful and insightful points shared in the chat box, colleagues. Thank you so much. In reality, I asked the wrong question, a bad question from you, to use a judgmental term. I asked a bad question. More appropriately, I asked the wrong question from you. And colleagues insightfully replied with the right answer. Which one was the wrong question? My first question about children, about them using, if it is too much or not, whether it's good or bad, and now asking you whether this kind of behavior, difference in communication, is good or bad, as pointed out by some of our colleagues insightfully in the chat box. This is different, no doubt, but it is neither good nor bad. It is just different. We can argue that yes, it is not very good when you do everything through chats. It might not be helpful in developing certain aspects of your identity, certain emotional, or if you wish, relational capabilities. I agree with that. But by us thinking something is good or bad right away, what we're doing, we're passing a judgment. When I ask you, is it good or bad? That's a judgmental question. I'm asking you to pass judgment. And the first thing about relationship-based practice, and colleagues would agree, is being non-judgmental. Do you agree? It's about being non-judgmental. So in that sense, it is better, while at this very starting point in the presentation, let us withhold judgment. Let's just approach the thing recognizing this is different. And I asked you also about whether children and young people use social media too much. And colleagues mentioned, some colleagues agreed, some colleagues disagreed. I will address that question in a minute. But first, let's look at the assessment. Our own, I will share the data later with you regarding national picture as to what response is on a national scale. And most social workers do not include routinely social media activities of young children and young people in their assessments. Also because a lot of times if you ask children and young people about their own experiences, and if you say, what social media do you use, what do you do, most people would tell you, that's private, they don't want to tell you. And that's actually one source of problem, that we don't know about what they're doing. By not including this, we all recognize online has a huge influence on children and young people. We all recognize that their relationships are all online. They're experimenting on identity online and everything. And their development is hugely influenced by their online activity. And yet, we do not include it routinely in our assessments. This, we believe, is a huge safeguarding gap. In fact, colleagues who work with criminal exploitation, with sexual abuse, with grooming, with radicalization, with very many other problems, cyberbullying, etc., we all know that a lot of anxieties, a lot of challenges young people face, it's because of their online interactions. The source is online, and still we do not include that in an analytic manner, in a detailed manner, in our assessments, and we do not include in our regular conversations with young people. So we believe that's a major gap. And regarding the use of online, by the way, the amount of time they spend online, let me just share something with you. I don't know how many colleagues remember when you were teenagers and when you came back home from school and you picked up the phone and called your best friend and stayed on the phone for hours, chatting with each other. And your parents telling you, put down the receiver, I want to use it. And you never did it. You just went on, and it went on and on to your parents. I need to use it. I told you I need to use it. Then you said, okay, fine, let's hear from each other tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Between that bye and putting down the receiver, because then there was a receiver to put down, by the way, and there was a dial, I don't know if you remember. But between saying bye and putting down the receiver, it took you half an hour. And next day you came back from school, you did the same thing. And our parents, I remember my own parents telling me, God, you need to study. What is it that you're studying, just talking so much about? You've just been together the whole day. We continued. We didn't change our behavior. If our parents pushed us not to do something, not to see somebody we wanted to see, one of our best friends or whatever, they felt it's not good for us, we went for study nights. And we did everything but study. we went covert. We hanged out in each other's homes or in the street or different corners, in different shops, in different bars, whatever, hanged out with colleagues, with friends, with peers, and trying to reinforce our own, develop our identity, reinforce our relationships, strengthen our relationships, experiment relationships. That's what young people are doing today as well. We use the phone, they're using the phone. The difference is one thing. We talked, everything was verbal. Everything we said and did is forgotten. It's just between you and your friends. Nobody else knows about it. Everything children and young people do remains online because it's all textual, all in images, all in videos, and it becomes, the lives are documented online. In a certain sense, they're always on stage. They're 24-hour on stage. We were trying to develop our relationships, experiment relationships, fall in love, out of love, etc., etc., heartaches, heartbreaks, happiness, excitement, all of that. But that was all private to us. And only our best friends knew about it, we talked about it. And any kind of thing we did, which wasn't even maybe okay, some of the stuff we did, it's okay, it's past. For young people, it's not. They are trying to do the same thing, but they're always on a stage. Thousands and thousands, and everyone basically has access to it and can watch it and can see it. So there's a lot more pressure in there, in the first place. And what happens, however, I don't know how many colleagues know about the story of Tallulah Wilson. Tallulah was a young person, 15-year-old. She was quite talented. She was a good ballet dancer. She was supposed to go to Royal Ballet. And however, she had difficulties with developing friendships and relationships. And in her class, she was not the most popular girl, and she didn't have many friends. Result, she found Tumblr. I don't know if colleagues know what Tumblr is. Tumblr is a website, a blogging website. She found Tumblr. She created a blog for herself and started blogging about her own experiences and sharing photos and videos of herself in her underwear, self-harming and so on. She developed quite a following, over 18,000 people actually, which is quite a number, quite good. And a lot of these people were pro-suicide, meaning people who encourage suicide, people who encourage self-harm and things like that. So obviously that was a source of risk to her. One day her mom found out about this Tumblr account, and she was completely shattered by the images and messages and experiences that Tallulah was sharing. She felt very upset. Tallulah was at school. She calls and asks Tumblr to delete the account. The account is deleted. Tallulah is unable to go online. Mom tells Tallulah about what has happened. Tallulah gets upset. And what happens, Tallulah, in that conversation, they speak and they say things like, this is, you don't, she tells her mom that, they were the only people who understood me. They were my best friends. They were the only one who get me. I don't know how many times colleagues have heard that young people telling us they're the only one who get me. They're the only one who understand me. They're my best friends. People that you may consider not helpful for them, not very positive for the young person. This is really important. This shows how sometimes we might not be in a position, young people do not see us as a friend sometimes, in the sense that they don't see us helpful and they feel we don't get it. They feel we don't understand them, in spite of all the good we try to do, in spite of everything you try to do. So after that conversation, 3 days later, Tallulah's grandpa takes her to her class, to a ballet class. She goes in, she waves, she goes in grandpa wigs, another couple of minutes, leaves. Her mom finds out that Tallulah hasn't taken her ballet stuff with her, calls Tallulah and tells her that you have forgotten your stuff. Tallulah says, don't worry about it. I don't need it today. And a few minutes later, a bit after that conversation, CCTV camera in St. Pancras Station picks up Tallulah sitting on a bench, alone, desolate, very sad, And next train that comes in, Tallulah jumps in front of it and kills herself. This is quite a shocking story, but the inquiry that followed, the coroner's inquiry that followed, is quite powerful. The coroner inquiry indicates the consultant psychiatrist who gave evidence mentioned that actually when Tallulah's online identity, the blog, was deleted, somehow Tallulah felt deleted. Colleagues, please take a second, a moment, to reflect. Can you connect with that? Can you appreciate why she felt that way? Young people feel that way. Their online identity is really important to them. Tallulah felt that way and felt deleted. We'll discuss more later today about why they feel that way. And the consultant psychiatrist added that thousands of people had given Tallulah, the various types of validation, positive in Tallulah's view, from Tallulah's perspective, validation, positive reward. And that was a source of satisfaction for her. So the blog was both positive and negative. This is very important. This is very, very important. In fact, one thing I often tell practitioners is this. I deal with a lot of serious cases. I look at a lot of other reviews, learning reviews, others, and childless situations and others. And I often say, when the case is very difficult, doesn't matter how difficult it is, you need to think always, what is positive about this? Because we only can start from positive. It's impossible to build on a hole. I often say that. You never see a building built on a hole. We dig down, we lay a foundation to provide a solid foundation, then we build the building. And the taller it is, the deeper the foundation. Meaning, we can only build on strength. You can't just build on hold. So we cannot build on deficit. We cannot bring positive change focusing on deficit. We do need to find a strength in any situation. And there always is a strength. At least one, a strength where you can build on. Having said that, the coroner concludes, no person, this is direct quote, no person who gave evidence felt that at the time they were looking after Tallulah, they had a good enough understanding of the evolving way that the internet is used by young people. I think that's a really powerful message. Don't you think so? Please don't hesitate to share any feedback, any thoughts regarding what we're discussing in the chat box. I can see it, that it would be fine. If you have any ideas, any feedback, anything you want to add to the conversation, please don't hesitate to share in the chat box. So I think that is a very, very powerful feedback. And that is so true, unfortunately, still today. Still today. In fact, fast forward to 2017, I don't know if you know the story of Ruby Seal. Ruby Seal, her mom says, Ruby was supported by CAMS at the age of 12. She'd experienced mental health challenges and she was supported by CAMS at the age of 12. And her mom says at the age of 12, she also discovered Snapchat. I think colleagues know about Snapchat most probably. It's a social media platform similar to Twitter, a bit quite different in nature of activity and the way online postings work, but it is also a lot of photos, a lot of, similar to Instagram, similar to others, a lot of photos, a lot of images, a lot of videos, and a lot of short, brief conversations. So she found Snapchat. Mom says she became addicted. And mom says that one day, when she was at the age of 15, one day, she posted an image on her Snapchat account. And she also, by the way, had difficulties in relationship and friendships. And I think, colleagues, everybody tries to get as many followers as possible. Everybody tries to have as many likes as possible. It's pretty important for young people. It is very, very central for them. So what she had, one day she posted an image, a photo of herself, and a short message. The message was, I might as well kill myself. Next day she goes to school, she comes back, and her mom says, There was no likes on her photo, and there was no replies to her message. And as based on mom's words, that's why she killed herself. That's a really, really sad story, isn't it? A very sad story. Mom, ever since then, Mom has been campaigning to raise the minimum age. This was in February 2017. 2 years, 4 months later, Mom has been campaigning to raise the minimum age for social media, for access to social media, from 13 to 16. Do you think that will change things? Do you think that will solve the problem? Her mom quite rightly says children need to come to us. They shouldn't be going on social media to do this. They should come to us for their problems, to share with us. They need to establish bonding with us. I agree with that, but we can't force them. And even if we raise the minimum age, unfortunately, it will not make much of a difference. Why? There are young people at the age of 11, 8, 9, others, I think colleagues know, who go on social media that is supposed to be for 13 years old, 13 year and older, or 16 year and older. So that is not really any way that we can control it in that manner. We need to come up with a different approach. In fact, today we'll talk about a different approach, if you wish. By the way, when we think about this, it is shocking. Now, we might end up thinking, God, what has the world come to? People would kill themselves. A lovely, brilliant, wonderful young person will kill herself for likes. You know, that is true. It's genuinely deeply sad. But likes are the currency of trust. Likes are what makes the world go round. Why do I say that? How many of you have reserved a hotel booking, made a hotel booking, and before doing it, you check the likes on TripAdvisor? How many of you have reserved a new restaurant and checked the likes? How many of you have reserved a holiday and checked the likes and then made the holiday based on the likes? How many of you have bought goods or services online, or for example from Amazon, and checked the likes? Likes are the currency of trust online. Likes is what makes the world go round. By the way, the research we did about criminal exploitation, gangs, and drug dealers, even in the dark web, the dealer who has the highest number of likes sells the most drugs, because it is all about likes. In fact, because it's all about likes and followers, some parents start early for their children. This is an example of a Facebook page. Mom has started a Facebook page for her child before the child is born, using pre-birth scan, and in order to already give her child a digital presence, so by the time the child is born, the child already has followings, already has likes. The child has a head start in life, in mom's view. Obviously, that takes child's choice away. It's not quite something that might be quite, many of us might agree or disagree with that. What research indicates is before their 5th birthday, children and young people, parents post something like 973 photos before the 5th birthday of the child. This is the average postings for children and young people in UK. So that is not even the highest number, it's just average. That shows us how people actually, how much more information is posted online, how much really is posted online. Having said that, let's just take a moment to see what social media means. What is social media? Let's try to just understand that. First, social media is any kind of media that you can do user-generated, you can post user-generated content, and you can share it, you can network with others, and you can share that content. That's basically, it can be used in social way. That's social media. And by the way, most of the technologies that you use, even your Windows software, even Outlook email that you use for mailing and for emailing, it is built using what is called social technologies. So in that sense, it is social in many ways. You can use it socially or not. It is your choice. But social media, more importantly, in my view, is datafication of life. What does that mean? It means our social lives have become data, basically. It is basically, normal things we do. All our chats, our conversations, our laughters, our walks, our graduation, our study, our work, arguing, falling in love, falling out of love, our heartaches, our supper, or what I had for breakfast, my friends, everything else is posted online. That is what it is. It's a life story. And taken together, this really provides what is called, what I would refer to as a digital visage. It's a face, a digital face, digital image of society movement. It captures the society movement. This can offer enormous source of learning, of course. And it can be an enormous source of good. But at the same time, it is inherently amenable to collection, because it's data, and analysis, which is still not so bad. In fact, Google, others do that, but it's also amenable to manipulation. For example, bullying, using your digital footprint for bullying or for other purposes, or for fraud, or for so many other things, including grooming, etc., etc. And just to tell you how quickly it works, everything you do online, anything you do with anything digital, is almost mediated. Everything with your phone and laptop, etc., is mediated by what is called machine learning and artificial intelligence. What does that mean? I don't know how many of you have experienced, I think colleagues might recall, when you go online, Google something, you look for a product. I'm trying to buy a pair of shoes. I'm trying to buy a bag, a dress, a skirt, a trouser, a jacket, whatever. You look for it, or I'm trying to buy pots for my flowers, some flowers, or whatever. When you go back to your email, Outlook email, you will see those ads. When you go to other pages, you will see those ads all over the page. You're reading a piece of news, you see those ads. The stuff that you were searching. This is because quickly your information is immediately picked up, it is sliced and diced, and it is used to catch your attention. We live in what is called an attentional economy. That's why Google is worth billions. By the way, it's worth nearly $1 trillion. That's $1,000 billion, even though for most of its services doesn't charge anything and they are free. So that is how important our data is. Having said that, this stuff is changing our social norms. Let's take this simple example. Let's say this fellow on the left is called Bob, and Tracy is his neighbor. Tracy, they know each other, they chat, they're friends. Tracy has invited her girlfriends over to just have a summer swimming party in her pool outside, outdoor. Bob says, "Can I come over?" He says, "No, this is just for girls, you can't come over." So Bob goes, picks up a pair of binoculars, sits beside the fence, and watches the girls in their bikinis having fun through the fence. I think colleagues would agree that's not quite appropriate behavior. A peeping Tom type of thing, And that, some years back, 20, 30 years back, would have been considered a little bit quite unacceptable and rather creepy in a way. Today, Bob doesn't have to do any of that. Bob can sit in the comfort of his bedroom, or can lie on a chaiselong, enjoying sunbathing himself, and looking at his mobile phone or his laptop, and watch Tracy and her friends on the screen, because Tracy most likely will share her experience and her girlfriend's experiences and everything they're doing, live stream it online. So it becomes socially acceptable. In fact, Tracy would hope Bob and many others like Bob would watch it and would like it, because it's all about that. Do you agree? So that is a major change in our social norms. Not only that, there's further change. The couple on the left-hand side, This couple went for a date in a restaurant. I don't know if you're familiar with this story. The date was a bit awkward. Somebody in the next table heard what they were talking about, started live tweeting their conversation. This went viral, and it was put on some media. They wrote about it and wrote articles about it, and so on and so forth. You can imagine this is an invasion of the privacy of that couple, and it actually was quite embarrassing for that couple. This shows how the confines of private and public, social and personal, privacy, human rights, and what I share, those confines, those boundaries have shifted and are constantly shifting. The right-hand story is another story that went viral. The couple that you see that was shown near the window in that plane. This is a flight. That couple had a fight on the flight, sort of an argument, because the girl found out that he is married. The person in the next row took their photo, as you can see, tweeted it, and tweeted the conversation, live tweeted the conversation. The couple broke up on the flight. They talked, and during the course of the flight, they made up, back in love. They came down the plane, hugging, kissing, everything going. In the meantime, the story went viral. Their children and the wife found out about what was going on, complicating their life enormously. You would think people who do this sort of thing should be punished for what they do. It's not appropriate. They were invited, the person tweeting the couple was invited to Grammy Awards, to tweet for Grammy Awards. So you can see, not only they're not punished, they're actually rewarded. When young people see that, what do you think they would think? How do you think they would relate to this? Is it strange then that young people would want to share more and more their own private stories of others? Why? Because all is about attention. It's about likes. It's about popularity. It is about number of followers. In fact, in the model that we propose, we say we use that currency of likes, that currency of popularity, that currency of getting visibility to motivationally make children and young people safe. Having said that, this stuff affects people's brain. This affects people's brain. When we receive likes, when we receive shares, when we receive retweets, it's like receiving chocolate. It's like receiving money. It's like getting a promotion or having sex. It's rewarding to us. It stimulates the same part of the brain, and in that sense, it is addictive. In fact, some social media companies, good example is Snapchat, use this stuff, the combination of technology, psychology, and gamification, to create addictive technologies. What do I mean by that? I don't know how many colleagues are familiar with Snap Streak, but if you don't mind, I'll just briefly explain what it is. Snap is basically taking a photo or a video or anything and posting it online. And basically Snapchat, I think colleagues know the meaning of digital footprint. What you post online, it will remain and others can see it. Snapchat said, don't worry about that. Don't worry about digital footprint. Anything you post on Snapchat in 10 seconds disappears. So people, wow, this is great. I can do anything I want. You know, the old saying goes, verba volant, scripta manent. What is said, the verbal communication, words fly. Literally, it means words fly, while what is written remains. That became the essence of this. What it was, people felt, well, this doesn't remain anywhere. There's no consequence to it. People started letting off steam, posting all kinds of things, nude pictures of themselves, topless pictures of themselves, etc., etc. This led to, I don't know how many colleagues have seen what is posted on Snapchat, but it's really, really quite different from what you see in every other website, in many other websites. There is grooming, there is problems with YouTube and any other social media, there is no doubt. But on Snapchat, grooming, bullying, etc. is a lot more frequent. And not only that, I don't know if colleagues know, you're familiar with Deliveroo. You might even have ordered from Deliveroo. And it's very convenient, very helpful service. Drugs today, for those colleagues who are familiar, they know, drugs work in the same way. Drugs, and if I wanted drugs, I don't go to the street corner to buy it. That's the old-fashioned way. You can buy drugs directly on Snapchat. You can buy drugs directly on Instagram. And a runner will deliver to your home, just like Deliveroo. Shortly thereafter, that runner is a young child who delivers the drugs to you. So there's a whole sophisticated system behind this. And Snapchat and many other sites have become a site for this sort of thing as well. But let's go back to Snapstreak, what it is. The reason I want to share this with you is I want to share with you the world of young people. I want to share with you the experience of young people. Because we often approach it, we say, that's not right, they're too much on social media, that's not okay, why do you do this, etc., etc. Take the phone away. We do a lot of those stuff. I just want you to see that it's not the same, that the pressure is quite different. If you and me snap, if I send you a snap and you reply to my snap within 24 hours, and I reply to you again, we snap back and forth, keeping it going within 24 hours for 3 consecutive days, then we get, both of us, we get a fire symbol next to our name. The fire symbol indicates that now we have a snap streak together. And beside that fire symbol, you will see a number like 3, 4, 5, etc. And that number tomorrow will go one level up, becomes a higher number, because that number is the number of days we have been chatting. We have been having this snap streak go, snapping back and forth. It's important to consider that that number can go a long way. Here, if you look at it, these people keep multiple snap streaks. These are one-to-one conversations, if you wish, not one-to-one snap streaks rather than conversations. And people keep this up and keep it for days. Like here, this is just part of one person's snap streaks. And that is with Gabby, 112. With Koibli, it's 268. Next one is 267. Next one is 182. These are a number of days. So the first one is nearly 4 months of snapping. Next one is about 9 months. The one after 9 months, 6 months, 2 weeks, over 4 months, almost 5 months, 3 weeks, so on and so forth. So you can see that's a long period to actually go on doing this. There are snap streaks. This is not very long, because the people who have really long snap streaks, some people have 1,600, 1,700 days going. That means they literally have conversations over, or that sort of snap streak going for 4, 5, 6 years. Okay? They keep that up. So why do they do this? Let me, before saying why they do it, let's see what is in this. Snaps don't mean that you have to post a conversation. Snap simply means take a photo, post it. Anything. Photo of the ceiling. Photo of anything. In fact, young people do that in their classrooms. When they're in the class, they just click, take a photo of the ceiling, post it. Take a photo of the chair, post it. Anything. Or a video of anything. The idea is just to snap back and forth. And have you ever emailed somebody and then they haven't responded and you texted them to sort of push them to respond? When you text them, you expect them to respond. Do you agree? Because different media, we relate to it differently. Email, it's acceptable that you respond later. When I text you, it's understood that when you see my text, you will reply. There's that presumption, if you wish. In fact, I don't know if you have ever had the experience of texting one of your colleagues and then, or your friends, for example, one of your good friends, and then seeing each other later during the day, a few hours later, and they haven't replied to your text, and telling them, "What's wrong with you? I texted you, why don't you reply?" That is because there is that expectation. The same thing applies to Snapstreak. When I snap you, the expectation is you reply as soon as possible when you see my snap. It's not for you to wait just before 24 hours, just before the end of expiry time, you reply. That's not acceptable. It is that when you see my snap, you need to reply. This means that's why children and young people constantly check their phone and constantly communicate back and forth, because there's that urge, there's that need. And if you don't do it, you can even be bullied for not responding, or I might stop to stick with you. By the way, snap streaks go on and on and on up to 1,600, 700, whatever days. See, for years and years, you can keep them going. And if you do not snap back and forth, one of the two parties doesn't reply within 24 hours, toward the end of the 24th hour, you will have a counter that appears. That counter will do a countdown, and once the 24 hours is passed, the snap streak will disappear, will be deleted. The snap streak will die. Okay? So that's how snap streak works. That's why children and young people have to keep it up. Why do they have to keep it up? You know, when you were in high school, when you were in elementary school, there were cliques. The most popular person, everybody wanted to be the friends of the popular people. Everybody wanted to be in the inner circle. Even in our workplaces, there are cliques and positions of power. And everybody wants to be in the inner circles, in the inner cliques. That relational identity is important to us because we position ourselves with respect to other people. The same thing is for young people. They try to belong to inner cliques. Everybody tries to chat with people who are popular in the class and keep a snap streak with people who are popular in the class. And if you are connected with the right people, you are somebody. If you're not connected with the right people, you're nobody. Therefore, snap streak is a sign of social hierarchies. When we see each other face to face, we size each other up. We look at social status symbols and we decide how to relate to the person, how to behave toward the person. You might do it consciously or you might do it unconsciously. But all of us do it. It's a proven psychological fact. Online, people don't see each other face to face. What is important are the badges. By the way, the badges are not just important to children, they're important to us too. I don't know if you have loyalty cards for any stores, Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, or any other, Waitrose. If you have those, you get those badges for the number of points to shop and so on and so forth. We try to get the badges, we try to do this. This is gamification. And that's what's done here too, badges. It's all about that. The difference is children and young people's identity is online. Their relationship is online. So who will like me, whether my girlfriend likes me or not, will depend on the badges I have. How many girls are interested in me depends on badges, on followers, on snap streaks, on all of this stuff. Having looked at it this way, I think hopefully colleagues can appreciate how important this stuff becomes. And that means you don't have you have a choice. You can decide today. I don't know if most probably you're present on social media. Most colleagues have presence maybe on social media, have some social media account on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or anywhere else, on maybe WhatsApp or wherever. And if you don't go on your social media account today, nothing will happen. You don't mind. Tomorrow, you don't go on it, no, nothing happens. It's not the end of the world. For children and young people, that is not a choice. Something will happen. If I don't go online 24 hours, I will lose my snap streaks completely. And that destroys my identity online. I have to start from zero. Have you ever, you can see how much pressure is on them. Have you ever recommended to a foster carer, to a parent, or to anyone else, take the phone away? When you do that, when you ground children and young people and you don't give them their phone, All those snap streaks die. Have you ever worked at something for several weeks or several months, and then somebody else has just destroyed it? Has it ever happened to you? Something you really worked hard at, and then it was lost. Somebody just took it away. How would you feel? How do you think? Do you agree young people exert a lot of effort, by the way, to maintain this stuff? They take a lot of abuse on, like we did. Like the person who was most popular in our class sometimes was rude to us. We just smiled and get on as long as we keep the friendship going because we wanted to be in the inner circle. The same applies to children and young people today. They take a lot of abuse sometimes in those snap streaks and in those chats and in those conversations from people who are rude to them or people who are popular in the class, and they just treat everybody else with disregard. They take that just to maintain their social identity, just to be somebody. You take the phone away for 24 hours and you make them literally nobody. You destroy their social identity. How do you think they would feel? All that effort. If this was the only snap streaks I had, how do you think I would feel? If you were the person, how would you feel? 9 months work, 4 months work, 6 months work, just thrown away. Because my social worker, because my dad, because my mom, because my foster carers just took the phone away. That's one reason, by the way. That's not the only reason. That's one reason children and young people have to run away. That's one reason when children, maybe your children, when you go on a holiday somewhere where there is not good internet connection, they would have to give their password to a colleague, to one of the best friends, to continue snapping for them, so they can maintain their identity. That's why. Because, in fact, the book, Safeguarding Children and Young People Online, Claudia Megali, by the way, extended her apology for not being able to join us today. She's feeling ill today. And the book she has written, to which I contributed, it is called Safeguarding Children and Young People Online. It's available on Amazon. And that book, we start the book with this story of a young person pedaling really fast, trying to get to the internet cafe in order to snap. Why? Because she doesn't want to lose her identity. Tallulah killed herself because of loss of identity. Ruby killed herself because she felt no validation for her online identity. So online is very, very important. It's a huge extension of their life. Everything happens online. And I think the onus is on us to understand as adults, to be mindful, to understand children and young people's experiences and appreciate that, and make sure that we relate to them in more positive ways. Make sure we relate to them in ways that's helpful to them, and that it's ways that are soothing, that are understanding to them. Having said that, Tyson was a young person whose mom thought children and young people should not be online before the age of 13. She didn't buy a phone for Tyson. Tyson bought a phone for himself out of his own pocket money, went online, opened an account, met a girl, fell in love. The girl became depressed and said she wanted to kill herself. Tyson discouraged her from doing so. And the girl continued being depressed. In every session, at sometimes up, sometimes down, one day the girl contacted him and said, you know something, Tyson, I love you infinitely, but I just can't survive. I can't live with this world anymore. Today, I'm going to take my dad's belt, go to the bathroom, hang myself from the shower. So this is our last conversation. Tyson was desperate, tried to discourage her. It didn't work out. She goes offline. Tyson is unable to reach her. He reaches a common friend next day, and asks if she knows anything about her. And she says, didn't you hear? She killed herself. That evening, Tyson doesn't come down to supper. Her mother goes upstairs, calling him. He doesn't come down, goes upstairs, finds him in his cupboard, having hanged himself using his own belt. Calls the police. Police comes over, searches the room, finds the phone, finds the messages, become concerned about the young girl, go to the house of the young girl. They find the house of the young girl. They go to the house of the young girl to check on her well-being, and the young girl is alive and well. The whole thing was a prank. it was just a joke, a cruel joke. That is the world of children and young people. The pressure they are under. And then we might think Tyson was too young. He didn't know. I would suggest after this session, you may want to Google the story of Dolly Shack. And you would see that this person actually came up with a restaurant online, fake restaurant on TripAdvisor, and in 6 months' time made the restaurant become #1 restaurant in London, where everybody wanted to come to his restaurant, media was interested, and so on and so forth, a non-existing restaurant. That is the difficulty with understanding what's real, what's not online. And that is the challenge of authenticity. What is authenticity online? That's the world of children and young people. By the way, it might be worth listening to the video, watching the video and listening to what he says, because it's interesting. At the end, he decides to open the restaurant. He invites people over and he serves them food. He blindfolds them, brings them in, unfolds them in front of their table. That's the place where he opens his restaurant, in his backyard, which is basically what it is. That is in the picture. He serves food that you can see. The name of dishes are things like happiness, contentment, journey, or things like that, emotions, etc. And the food that he served beer and he served food. The food came from the very famous gourmet shop in London. I think all of you have heard the name. It's called Iceland. The food came from Iceland, average price £1.5 to £2. He unfroze it, prepared it, got a bit of herbs from the backyard that you see, threw it around the plate, making it look different. And each plate is unique, serving it. People ate it. What a great dish. It's such a mystic in this taste. Incredible, isn't it? In fact, afterwards, he asked people, how did you find it? How was the food? Oh, very interesting. Very good. Would you come back? Would you reserve again? Absolutely, yes, of course. Why? Who am I to judge #1 restaurant in London being bad? This restaurant became #1 restaurant on TripAdvisor. And this is the point. The point I'm trying to make is how you can manipulate online the stuff. And how, even when we experience the real thing, even when we go and eat the food from Iceland, we think it's exceptional just because it's #1 restaurant. That is the power of what's called suggestion. Children and young people, and even ourselves, this is our word. This is the story of Wantali. Wantali, they had domestic abuse in their home. One day they fight, the wife runs away, fear of being beaten up. She runs away. Wantali takes their child, goes on top of a building, ties a rope around the neck of the child, 11-month-old, hangs the child, live streams it, and tags the mother into that live stream. Then he hangs himself, live streams it, and tags the mother into it. The mother comes back home after a few hours, doesn't find them, sees her Facebook account is going wild, checks the Facebook account, lots of likes, lots of shares, interesting, looks at it and finds the videos, shared by thousands of people, watched by thousands of people. You can imagine how she felt. The reason Wantali did that is because he wanted to harm her beyond the physical harm. He wanted her to be able to see this repeatedly, over and over and over and over again, to re-victimize her over and over again. You can imagine the level of pain. And that is why I say, when you see something that's not right, something that's not helpful, something that's harmful, please, please, please do not share it. Every time it's shared, it's a re-victimization of the person who has had that untowardly experience or that harmful experience. This is new ways how harm is exaggerated online. I think you all would agree, everything is exaggerated online. The good, the bad, the strength, the vulnerabilities. and the harm and the helpfulness. Having said that, this is another way digital and social media are changing our lives. I don't know if you know the story of Kurt Eichenwald. Kurt Eichenwald is a famous journalist. He writes for Vanity Fair, he's written for New York Times, and many other. In 2015, he wrote an article about Trump and conflict of interest. And what happened was he started being stalked and harassed by Trump followers. One of the followers, an army veteran, searched his information and found out that Eichenwald is actually epileptic and is photosensitive, meaning flashing light would cause epilepsy for him, epileptic seizure. So what he did, he tweeted Eichenwald saying, "You deserve a good seizure." And Eichenwald had his iPad in his hand. He was about to go into the bathtub, and he opens the tweet and he sees, I don't know if you're familiar with GIF messages, that they repeat themselves. It was a GIF message strobe of flashing light. So Eichenwald had seizure for over 8 minutes. He fell onto the ground. He had seizure for over 8 minutes. He nearly died. This was reported to the police. The FBI got involved. They found the person who did this, and he was taken to court. He was sued for his action. This is a landmark case. It happened in Houston, Texas. It's a landmark case because, for the first time, the court recognized this being a digital assault. The same way, in fact, the judge felt this is the same as battery and physical harm. There's no difference. And basically what happened, this digital was used in the same way anthrax would be used by terrorists in mail and stuff like that. So this is an important landmark case. In fact, the subsequent year, in 2018, what happened was the Epileptic Foundation, US Epileptic Foundation, was attacked. All the followers of their Twitter account received similar attacks on Twitter, trying to cause similar sort of seizure for their followers. These are new forms of harm. I don't know if colleagues have heard about digital self-harm. Digital self-harm is another one. People who suffer, people do physical self-harm, some people do digital self-harm, an extension of that, and some people, because of the level of the pain they suffer, they open up accounts for themselves, attacking themselves, putting derogatory remarks about themselves, in order to sort of, it's a mode of self-harm, but they do that in that case because in order to sort of soften the blow of attack by bullies and by others. This happens in cases where people experience bullying and others. So they try sort of to beat the bully to the punch. This is another example. People suffering, people being harmed online and harming themselves. And the message says, every day I was called ugly, stupid, and a loser online. It hurts so much that I cried myself to sleep every night. We have seen that, the power of shame. And yet, our research indicates that 9 out of 10 social workers do not include online in their assessments. And they only do so when it's part of the referral. And that is, I think, quite significant. Therefore, we did a research with great partnership with about 30 local authorities to find out more about this and to find out a more helpful way forward. And the research had several objectives. It's an ongoing research, by the way, and you're very welcome to join. And several different outputs. But most importantly, we focused on what it is. What is the question of digital professionalism? What does it mean? Do people know about social media policies their employers have? And as you can see, many people don't. Do these social media policies address actually actual experience of children? Do they really have a clear understanding of children's world? And again, you can see majority is no. And clarity of professional standards. Are professional standards clear about whether it's okay to look at, for example, service users accounts or not, or to look at the data or their social media accounts and stuff? Again, the answer is no, and so on. So we found out that actually people do not include this stuff. People find it helpful. People say it is helpful. Here, people saying it's helpful to include it. It's essential to have this information included in my assessment. But then they actually in practice do not include it. Having said that, social media is a huge source of harm in the sense that it's a huge source of learning, also harm, in the sense that research by Bernardo's, the one on the right hand is research by Bernardo's, the one on the left is not by Bernardo's. And research by Bernardo's indicates that 83% of young people aged 11 years old have seen stuff they shouldn't have seen and have been in touch with people they don't know, and they have been asked to do things they didn't want to do. This shows how common this is. In fact, this is the feedback we got from young people saying, I don't think my dad realizes how many messages from random boys I get or how many dick pic I get. And I have to deal with it every day. It's kind of, normal. And the conversations go, literally, hi, news. I'm like, no. And it's really like that. That is the young people's world. Or, for example, people saying, if you just get taught never talk to anyone on the internet, stay off it, you just think, oh, well, I'm going to ignore that. And then you don't actually know what the warning signs are, which means you go on thinking that there is not real risk and everyone's making it up. These are messages from young people. How can we make that more sensible? Our research, we felt, we came up with what's called the 10 C's. These have been developed based on consultation with over 3,000 social workers and social care workers, based on consultation with hundreds and hundreds of parents, hundreds and hundreds of foster carers, and hundreds of young people. We asked young people, what is risk to them? What does it mean? What is risk? We asked parents, we asked all these people, what is risk? And how would you relate that to your own identity, to your own relationship? So analyzing all that data, we came up with 10 different ways that we can look at risk. We can classify online risk and we can assess online risks. And we developed a number of interactive tools to use children and young people. We're working with a number of local authorities right now nationally doing this and changing this, doing this sort of training for social workers, social care workers, for teachers, for foster carers, adoptive parents, for police, for others. Having said that, these 10 C's are basically the following. We believe the first thing to know is what kind of social media do they use? What is the context of their experience? What social media do they use? Why do they use it? What do they get out of it? Next thing to know is what kind of content do they use? And please note, each one of these, we need to know the risks and we need to know the benefits. What do you get out of it? If we don't know why they do it, we can never address it with them. We can never change it. So what content they use? What kind of behavior? What's the conduct online? Who are their contacts? Who are the significant people they idolize? The influencers they like? The people they like? Do they have physical contact, meaning face-to-face contact with these people, or is it just virtual? What kind of personal information do they share? Sharing personal information can promote your identity, can help you. It can also make you vulnerable. So how can I help you to share personal identity in helpful ways? So this, we felt, is another thing we need to consider. Compatibility and contrast. You consider home environment versus school, home behavior versus school. Have you considered online behavior versus offline? We think that is really important. How can we explore that with children and young people? We can learn a lot about it. Children and young people exaggerate things online, but often that is their ideal identity. So how can we make that become a positive goal so they can change their offline and online behavior for better? Connection and social capital. How do they choose? Everything is about connections. How do they choose their connections? Who do they connect with? And what is their social capital? How much influence do they have? How popular are they? And how can I often say, I want to make you more popular. I'll help you become popular. You know, if I told young people not to use something, they wouldn't listen. They'd feel, what do you know? You're a dinosaur. You're too old to know. When I try to make them popular and show them I know a few things about it, then they might change their mind. So making them popular, but making them safe. Consumption, time, frequency, pattern. How do they use online? For what purposes? The pattern is very important, and how much time they spend online. Commercial and professional aspects of it, and commercial exploitation aspects of it. Those who have dealt with commercial sexual exploitation, they know that what I mean by commercial exploitation, but also, you know, there are children and young people who have very positive blogs online, and so that can be helpful. And complex and composite are risks that are a combination of these. Based on this model, we have developed, as I mentioned, a number of tools to interactively work with young people, one of them being this. We can gamify this process so children and young people can compete with each other to increase rating their own benefit and the level of risk for each of these variables, and then trying to increase the benefits, decreasing the risks. That's the game. We can gamify it, and we can even bring competition in school classes, and people really go for it. Their experience is really, really positive. Children end up learning a lot more about risk, a lot more about themselves, and a lot better relationships, creating maps and changing the maps, setting targets, and so on. We have released a number of actually guidance together with Social Work England with this regard. I don't know if colleagues are familiar with it. We will email it to you. I will share it with your teaching partnership so it can be emailed to you. And there is an explanation of everything I just discussed, a number of things I have discussed today. I hope the conversation we have had has been helpful, and it has brought a little bit, if you wish, children and young people's experiences. That was the objective here, and what they do online and what it is like online. People say that being young is the best part of our lives, but often we end up forgetting that actually growing up is pretty challenging. It was for us, and it is for young people today. Perhaps it's more challenging than it ever has been. And we need to remember that, if we leave children by themselves, the 24-hour connectivity, that is automatically the default position we have. We need to teach them the art of disconnecting, but we need to do it in a language that they appreciate. And if we leave children to their devices, they may never leave their devices. So it's important that we do things in ways that could be helpful for them. And at the end, I think, if I may just share a short story, or maybe we will do that in the next session during our direct work about online safeguarding, and talking about how we can learn about simple things in our work to make it more effective. In the meantime, I'd like to thank you for your time, and thank you for having joined for today's conversation. Hope it has been helpful, and wish you a lovely day, good continuation of your week, and see you next week talking about direct work. Bye for now.